I've always had this like stupid idea of like wanting to name my dog Stay. Like, come here, Stay. Roll over, Stay. It's like super dark to think about this. But I just saw this thing earlier that somebody wrote. They wanted to name their dog 5 Miles so they can tell people they walk 5 miles every day. I was like, that's funny. I like dumb dad humor like that.
Fun, but worthless, you know?
Well, the weird thing is that it was on LinkedIn. Like, LinkedIn is becoming Facebook.
To a degree, yes. Yeah. And people just, I don't know. Like, I guess that's the problem with an open social media platform, right? Yeah. People can make it whatever they want it to be. And I think at some point it generates a life of its own, and the original owners can't really control it without constricting the growth.
Yeah, but it's also owned by Microsoft.
Well, yeah.
I mean, the thing with LinkedIn is like I've run into a personal problem on LinkedIn because I try to market to both MSPs and clients. And so like my messaging gets a little fuzzy, you know, because like I'll post one day like, hey, here's a really cool thing you can do with a Mac, or like, here's the first thing you should do when you get a business with Apple Business Manager. And then like the next one's like, hey, listen to the episode of ATMSP that I just did, you know, not for you, PR firm that I take care of, but like for the other people who are, you know, because I'm like connected. I have so many connections that are in both categories. Well, right. No, that's not correct. I have so many connections that are in one of the two categories. I don't have anyone that's in both categories, but I'm trying to target both of them individually. So like, I know we talked about building a personal brand. That's my legit problem is my personal brand is for both MSPs and not MSPs. And then like most people would be told like pick a lane, but like I can't.
Yeah. Although that is something. Okay. So it's easier said than done. When you already have established yourself.
Correct.
If you're starting from scratch, it's easier.
To pick a lane, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Which is fine. Like I'm okay playing both sides of the tennis court. You know, I'm just a little tired running back and forth.
Right.
That's why I play paddleball instead. I don't play paddleball. I get invited to a weekly paddleball game, and I'm like, listen, losers, no. If paddleball is your thing, I look forward to your tweets and emails. Near.
Simplify Microsoft 365 management with CoreView, the ultimate tool for MSPs. From advanced reporting to enhanced security and license optimization, CoreView empowers you to manage your clients' environments effortlessly, save time, reduce costs, and deliver superior service. Learn more at atmsp.link/CoreView. Add DMARC management and monitoring to your MSP services with Easy DMARC. Protect your clients from phishing, spoofing, and impersonation while boosting their trust in your solutions. Easy DMARC makes email security simple, effective, and hassle-free. Visit atmsp.link/Easy DMARC to learn more and start offering DMARC as a service today.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the All Things MSP podcast. I'm your host, Justin Esgar. With me always is my good friend, podcast producer extraordinaire, pirate, man with the plan, Eric Anthony. We're talking about fun stuff today because the next half of this show is going to be not so fun. It might be fun. I don't know.
Well, I think it's going to be fun. We might
we'll make it fun. That's what we do here at ATMSP. It's all things fun.
We might offend some people up front, but I think we'll make it better by the end.
It's a lot better than offending people from behind. Just saying.
That's an image I can't get rid of.
It's been a fun day here, folks. You're going to tell that Eric and I are a little bit like towards the end of the week and a little bit ready for the weekend. Normally we end the show with like Eric being like, I don't think you hear this part normally because Eric already cuts it off, but he's like, I'm going to go get a whiskey. I'm like, you should get one now. I feel like you need one for this episode. It is the end of the week.
It's too far away.
I can stall if you want to we can edit. We'll have the robots do the work.
No. So, actually, another thing I didn't share during the pre-show, sorry. is that I've been dealing with a gout flare up this week. And so alcohol, not on the list today.
Not on the list. I love, there was a great bit by Jim Carrey when he was doing stand-up where he was like, I just want to do this for the sake of doing it. It's like, I want to take a bottle of whiskey. I want to pour it all over myself. Not drink a single lick. Just pour it all over myself. And drive with my head out of the sunroof going, and get pulled over and then and then make them give me a breathalyzer test and be like, nothing.
Well, hopefully nothing, because, it might pick something up from the air around.
Yeah. But still, I mean, it was a funny bit. All right. Those are what's funny about this is, and this, I'm going to tie this into our topic, I promise, is that things like that stick with you, right? Things like funny stories like that stick with you. And that's how you attach yourself to a person or a brand or a thing. Great example of this recently. I don't know if anyone who's listening follows Formula One, but if you are, you know that Lewis Hamilton now wears a red jumper because he's now part of Ferrari after a 10-year stint at Mercedes. And Ferrari had him he just joined TikTok, and I love me the TikToks. A marketing firm digitally what's the word? Reimposed? Whatever.
Superimposed?
Superimposed. Superimposed. Even more than imposing, you're superimposed. Into that famous Ferris Bueller scene where Ferris drops Cameron's Ferrari off in the parking lot, and they had Lewis be the parking lot attendant, and they cut him in being like, relax, I'm a professional. And then they have the scene where they drive away, because there's that famous scene where the two parking lot attendants are jumping a hill and you see them being like, ah! And so it's Lewis Hamilton, and they got, for whatever reason, Edward Norton in there. And they cut this scene together as a thing for him coming to Ferrari. Okay. Now, the reason I'm telling this story is that is good marketing. And that's what we're going to talk about. So the story I was telling before the Lewis Hamilton one, the Jim Carrey story and the Lewis Hamilton one, it's good for marketing because it builds their brand up, and building your brand up is part of marketing. So we're going to talk about marketing. See, I told you I could do it.
Okay. But that's not the controversial part.
No, we're not there yet. Don't ruin it. The controversial part is that there was a keynote at Adobe Summit today, or this year. Sorry, not today. And the number one slide said, "Marketers are full of shit."
Which, we have. Well, I don't think we've called out names on the show, because that's not what we do.
We don't do that here. But you know.
But there are a lot of marketers that are successful in our industry, that a lot of people complain about in terms of the effectiveness. And I think a lot of, especially technical people, don't understand marketing enough, and so they all think it's shit.
Do you remember the 1990s?
Barely.
Cool. So there used to be a dude, his name was Don Lepre, right? Don Lepre had a what were those half those it was a half hour advertisement. I forget what they called them.
Infomercials?
It was an infomercial. I told you guys, it's the end of the week. Eric has to get the big words out of my dumb mouth.
I'm just here to be Justin's thesaurus.
What was it? There was a joke. It's I didn't have it was something I didn't have a thesaurus and I couldn't figure out whatever. I'll figure out that joke later. Anyway, so Don Lepre. Okay. Don Lepre had a infomercial, and he taught you how to make a lot of money by taking out little classified ads. That was the spiel. 12-year-old me, was like, Dad, can I buy this? And my dad said, no. And I got mad at him. Later in life, I learned that the only person who was making money was Don Lepre. Not that like old couple who was like, I took out collateral classified ads and we got a boat after we paid off our mortgage. Like those people were paid actors. They didn't pay off their mortgage. They probably got paid $50 to read the line and like moved on with their life, right? And I bet you because it was like a really old couple, and I think it was only the guy who was speaking. So I'm pretty sure the woman in the relationship that I'm putting in air quotes only got $25 because she didn't have a speaking line in the commercial. But the point being is that like the person who made the money was the person selling the wares, not the people who were buying the product. Now, 12-year-old me didn't understand that, right? Now, current me, I'm not telling you how old I am. Current me does understand that, which is why I've always been so hesitant about working with these marketing firms, especially the ones that are like MSP marketing firms, right? Because the truth of the matter is, and I'm gonna cut, like, we're gonna talk in this in depth, and I'm gonna cut it off right here by saying, like, the truth of the matter is no client needs you until they need you. The marketing part of it is to just keep them remembering who you are. But there are 78,000 different ways you can do that. You don't need to do or pay for the plans that some of these people are trying to sell you on. That's my opinion.
And that's an opinion. And you're entitled to your opinion. Now, I'm going to counter that with most MSPs don't know where to start when it comes to marketing.
Yes.
And so a lot of these programs do offer a reasonable place to start with doing your marketing. But here's where the problem comes in. They think they're going to spend $2,000, $5,000 and get this plan that's magically, as soon as they get the 3-ring binder in their hand, going to bring clients in the door.
Yeah, like day one. Yeah.
Right. And that's not the case. Well, they'll put it up on the shelf. They'll look at it every once in a while and wonder why they're not getting clients.
Yeah.
And this is why most MSPs think that marketers are shit, because the MSP puts the plan on the shelf and then never does anything with it.
Right. Yeah. It's the lack of action, right?
Right. It is absolutely the lack of action that usually causes the problem. I used, back when I was still an MSP, I used one of the most popular marketing people out there today. And as soon as I started actually doing the things that they recommended I do, guess what? I started getting people calling in. I started booking meetings. And from those meetings, every once in a while, I actually got a new client.
Yeah. The funny thing though is, like, I know plenty of people who are doing the work and it doesn't work, right? Like, that's kind of where my thing is that it's not that if you do the work, it's going to work. Like, you could do the work and it's still not work.
Correct. So that's where I think the other problem comes in. The other problem that comes in is no marketer can develop a single plan that is going to work for everybody.
Right.
And this is why I always propose. In fact, there was a post in the Facebook group about this the other day. Somebody starting up an MSP and where do they start? And I'm like, and they asked specifically if they should pay for a marketing firm or a lead generation firm. And I was like, no. What you need to do is you need to first, and we've had Paul Green on here. We've had Steph Hilfer on here. We've had lots of other marketers on here who always talk about your ideal customer profile.
Yeah.
And, you are the only one who can come up with that. Nobody else but you can come up with that. And so you have to put in a little bit of work to figure out who you're going after, where they live, virtually and physically, figure out what kind of content is going to be valuable to them, and just put that content out where they're going to be. Now, does that take work on your part? Yes, but I would bet that if you are just starting out as an MSP, you have more time than money. So
Oh
this
yeah,
works.
we've had this conversation about the time versus money thing.
Right.
So if this is the first time you're listening to this show, maybe go back a couple episodes. I also think that when you're first starting out, there's no level of marketing work that can be done that's going to be better than you, like as a person. So like when you're first starting out, especially like you're it, right? Like you have to do the marketing. So like getting that content out there, going to the networking meetings, going to the BNIs and the things that are similar to that, like getting your name out there. Because I saw that post, and that post is like, how do you get your first customer? And like I can't answer that because I took customers with me from my old company because I didn't have a non-compete, which I mean they're out of business now. I don't care, but like they tried to slip me one with my severance package, and I was like, no, I'm good, thanks. But all the customers I had to get after were from networking and meeting and telling everybody I knew and like doing the marketing myself. The thing with lead generation I've been finding is that yes, you do need your ideal client, right? But even if you have your ideal client, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to pull leads the right way, right? Like the big thing, and you and I actually were having an offline conversation about this. It's impossible for lead generations to find leads for Mac people, for Apple consultants, because you don't know that they have Macs or not. And there are tools that you can use to like determine if like the email hits a Mac machine because they're reading it in Mac Mail or iOS Mail or Safari or whatever it is. But like if they're reading it in Gmail and Chrome, it's still like a 50-50, well, it's more like an 80-20 shot that they're going to have a Mac, right? And like you could assume if it's a design company, they probably have a Mac. But like I'm torn about paying a leads company to go find me these leads because it's not just getting me the leads. Then I got to get them to warm the leads as well and determine that they have Macs and get me a clean lead list. That's a lot of work. And if I don't have the time to do it, it means I got to pay someone to do it. And that's very expensive.
Well, and that's a great point because it is very expensive for you to pay a lead generation company to experiment for you.
Yeah.
You are much better off experimenting on your own for a short period of time. Learn about what your ideal client profile should look like, what the problems with identifying them are, what the questions are that you can ask to qualify them correctly. And then once you have that down, now you have something you can give to a lead generation company that is actually going to be effective. But it is in my opinion, one of the worst things you can do is have somebody else experiment for you because they don't know your business well enough.
Yeah, 100%. But like, let's go beyond, right? So like, I think one of the big things is that these marketing companies that are around, they're promising you leads, they're promising you meetings, they're promising you all these things. But like to your point, they don't really know what your business is about. And marketing is more than just leads, right? Marketing is your LinkedIn, marketing is your website, marketing is your blog posts, marketing is your design of your brand, marketing is the language that you use when you're responding to people and helping others in the community, because that's, we're all about that community life, right? If you are out there trying to be like, I fix computers and I'm going to help you no matter what, like you're not going to get anywhere, right? If I land on your website and it hasn't been updated since 1998, or if this pisses me off so much, if you have a website and you have other company logos on your website that are in a white bounding box on a black bar, like, you know what I mean? As opposed to like a transparent PNG, like how technical I'm getting, folks. Like people are going to look at that and go, you don't know how to make a website and you're in technology, because whilst you may not make websites as part of your, like, as part of the thing you do for customers can't separate those two things. Websites are technology. You do technology. You do websites, right? And whether you do or don't, irrelevant. If your website looks like garbage, they're not going to work with you.
Well, and you made a really good point that marketing is not just lead generation, right? I consider marketing to be primarily three different things. It is brand, it is awareness, and it is lead generation. Now, those three things are typically not all found in the same marketer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one marketer is not going to be able to help you with all three of those things, most likely.
And if they say they can, they can't do a good job of any of them.
Well, and they're going to be, well, if they do, it's because they're big, and that means they're also going to be expensive.
Right. Fair enough.
So, there are people who are really great at brand. I mean, and we're going to name drop some people here because we're going to name drop them in a good way. Steph Hilfer. If you haven't seen the podcast episode that we did with her and branding, absolutely one of the ones you should think about taking a look at.
She's like the goat branding.
And then awareness is all about content. It's all about dangling pieces of content in front of your ICPs where they hang out.
Yep.
And then lead generation is literally just getting people to pick up the phone and do cold emails and cold phone calls to get you meetings.
Yep. The other side, like the other piece of this is that, you mentioned time versus money earlier, right? Like until you're big enough to hire a marketing person to like manage those three pillars, like you have to put in the time. And I feel like that's also a major part because I'm sure plenty of you that are listening are going like, well, I really, really, really don't have the time to do it. Right. I'm so busy. I'm putting out fires all the time. I'm dealing with that. That's a BS excuse, right? Like you could hire another tech to handle those fires and then have the time. You could work on it on the off hours. Marketing is not usually a thing that's done during work hours unless you're making phone calls. But like you can put a post on LinkedIn at 2 a.m. No one's going to know it was 2 a.m. Right? Like those are those things. You mentioned something earlier about, going where your customers are. And so, I could say like 80% of the people who run an MSP, who take care of businesses, can find their ideal audience on something like LinkedIn, right? And if you're only doing home users, you're going to find them on Facebook. What's interesting, though, is if you niche down to even a smaller like vertical. So this was a funny like predicament I ended up in because we do a lot of work with nonprofits. So I was like, oh, let me go find all the nonprofits on LinkedIn. Ho, they're not there. Like there's like, even if you do find a nonprofit on LinkedIn, it's like very little interaction. Because that's not where their customers are. That's not where their donors are, right? Like if you have a nonprofit, you have a small 10-person nonprofit and you're trying to rake in $2, $3, $5 million a year, you're not getting it from other people on LinkedIn. You as a nonprofit are on Facebook, right? So like you do have to think about that a little bit. Most companies are on LinkedIn in some way, shape, or form. And it's really easy to like connect with someone being like, hey, I see we have some mutual connections, or hey, we're doing work in your area, or hey, I would love to connect just because like we're both, I do this one a lot. If I ever find another Justin on LinkedIn, I'm like, hey, fellow Justin, welcome to the club. And then like I use that as my intro. Most of the time, those people will connect with me because they think it's funny. But you can use that to find those people and then warm them up through there. Now, the problem also is you as the MSP know damn well that like there's a lot of sleaze on LinkedIn. Like I legit, whilst we're having this conversation, I have a person who's messaged me now Monday, Tuesday, and today, and 2 on Tuesday, being like, and the last one is like, it's important to maintain a strong connection with virtual contacts, and LinkedIn is a great way to do that. Let me know when we can discuss things. Dude, I know you're a sales executive. I see it in your title, and you're selling me something that I don't care about right now, but like 3 messages in a week? Whoa.
Yeah, and have you gotten any of the where they send you a voice recording?
No.
Yes, that
Someone's done that to you? That's rude.
That seems to be the new trend.
That's only second rude to getting for a salesperson who finds my email address and just sends me a calendar invite and gets something on my calendar.
Oh yeah. That's the worst, by the way.
Yeah.
You had mentioned the time versus money thing. And
you mentioned it, and then I re-mentioned it.
Yeah. Because while yes, there's a time versus money thing, it's not just about that, right? It's not just about having the time because you're just starting out.
Yeah.
It goes back to that experimentation piece that I was talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. And I think as an MSP with a very specific, offering for what you're trying to do to a very specific group of people, you have to do that experimentation first. You have to learn at least enough to talk to a marketer or take some of these plans that marketers are giving you and adjust them slightly for your audience. Now, The other thing that I wanted to mention along with the time versus money thing is that, because you mentioned it, was you should hire somebody to put out the fires while you're doing the marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally heard this in the back of my head. I heard an MSP. I'll play the MSP here and
no, don't do it with the voice. Don't be rude.
I'll say, but Justin, I don't have the money to pay somebody to put out those fires.
Yeah, that's a good call.
But that probably means you're not charging enough.
Yeah, true. Done. Problem solved. You fixed it in yourself. Good job. Actually, you know what's funny about the pricing thing? And we'll get off topic for 1 second. I was on some forum. I don't want to mention who. And the person was asking about pricing, and they were like, trying to figure out my pricing, blah, blah, blah. And I see the average is $25 to $40, per machine. And I'm going to include, Microsoft and backup and all these things. And I was like, bro, you are undercharging.
Right.
So bad. But then again, I don't really know PC market. I don't know PC MSP pricing well. Right? Like I only know the Apple pricing well, and we do charge a lot for our services. But like I'm assuming that PC MSPs at this point are charging the same thing that we are.
So yes, I think your pricing is very close to what the average, what you and I would call a real MSP, is charging for their services. The $25, $45 per device, that cannot be for any labor. There's no chance that labor is included in that.
I think it was. But that person's going to run into issues with exactly what you just said. Like, I don't have the money to pay for somebody else because, lo and behold, you're not charging enough. I'm going to find it. We'll talk about it later. But if you're not charging enough, that's the other thing is, if you're not charging enough, this is actually a good loop, right? You're not charging enough to your customers. Therefore, you believe you need more customers. Therefore, you are going down and getting one of these marketing companies to help you to get more customers, to fill the void for the dollars you're trying to pull in. And then you're saying to us, but I don't have time to do the marketing. You also don't have the time to take on these new customers either, right? Like if you think about it, if you can't put an hour or two into marketing every day or something, even a half hour, let's say a half hour to an hour every day, right? You don't have the time to bring on 2, 3, 5 new customers because you're going to, like, your head will explode. And so, like, if you're trying to fill the void of not enough money, therefore I need more customers, you're doing it wrong. So stop right there, raise your prices, right? I'm trying to like cut through the fat here on it, but like raise your prices, fix that, and then think about how you can get more customers. Because like this is true. Every year we do ACEs. Every year I put out a survey going, what do you want to learn? And every year, basically everybody writes, I want to get more customers. And the same conversation happens every year. Why do you want more customers? Well, I want more money. Can you handle more customers? Yeah. Do you have time right now to do marketing? No. Then you can't handle new customers.
Right. I literally saw that scene from the movie. You can't handle the truth. You can't handle more customers. That's actually a point that I made in my comment on that Facebook post the other day.
Yeah.
Was if you do this by yourself, you should aim to get 5 to 10 meetings a month. And that should get you 1 to 2 new clients a month, which is probably all you can handle onboarding in 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I found the post here. It says, I'm in the process of increasing our rates. I've always been concerned. My understanding of blended labor rates in the market is somewhere between $20 and $45. If it's below that, then you don't have enough techs. And if it's above this range, you're paying too much for techs. So maybe he's talking about paying for techs as opposed to...
Yeah, it sounds like a per hour for a tech.
Yeah. So I was just like, I still think you got to pay more. Like, I think you got to charge more. But then he goes, I'm a one-man band and I'm trying to build out the model. So what are you worried about paying for techs for if you're one-man band? This goes to just like what we're talking about, right? If you have time, spend the time. If you don't have the time, you have to spend the money. If you don't have the money and you don't have the time, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, folks, but like, that's not a growth perspective. That's not a growth path.
Well, and I would also add to that, you can't just spend money and expect results, because you have to understand your business enough from a marketing standpoint to be able to tell a marketer what to do for your business. And also go back to what we were just talking about. A marketer is not going to be probably interested in getting you just a handful of leads or a handful of meetings a month.
Yeah.
Because they don't make enough money on that, especially when it comes to a lead generation, somebody who's actually booking meetings for you.
Yeah.
And so you have to make sure that you have the capacity to handle what they're going to be bringing in. You probably, as an owner, if all you have is techs, are going to have to be doing sales full time. If you hire an outside marketer.
Yeah. And that's why I like, so many people want to bring in an SDR, do all these things. Like, I looked at doing an SDR and like, he gave me a list of questions that I like could not answer. Cause like, I just couldn't do it. I don't know why. And it was like things about my business and things about past clients and things about people that we didn't do business with. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do this. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with where I stand in life. Sometimes I'll get off this. When we stop recording, Eric knows that I like cry to him for the next hour being like, I don't know what I'm doing. But like, you have to put that in. This always comes back to like an old, I hate bringing them up all the time, but like an old Vaynerchuk move. When Vaynerchuk was first doing stuff and he had in the first book, Crush It, back when he was cool, not current Vaynerchuk. But please, if you want to do keynote aces, Gary, well, we'd love to have you. We can't afford you, but we'd love to have you. But one of the things he said was like, if you're going to start your business, you got to put in the time. And it's like, and this is where he's talking about, if you're talking about a side hustle, which is kind of where I'm going with this, it was like, do your 9 to 5, come home, kiss your wife, kiss the dog, have dinner. And then from 7 to 10, 11, 2 in the morning, work on your side hustle, right? And so it's kind of the same thing. Like, if you're a one-man shop or even a two-man shop and you're doing the work and you're in it all day, you have to find the time to work on it, right? And that might mean putting in those evening hours. Like, what do they say about entrepreneurs, right? Like, entrepreneurs quit their 40-hour work week so they can have an 80-hour work week.
Yep.
Right? Like, last night, point of reference, right? Last night, I finished work officially 5:30. Cool. I went upstairs and I was going to make dinner, and then I did, and then the kids pissed me off, so I don't want to make dinner anymore. So Michelle was like, I'll make dinner. So Michelle's making dinner, and I'm sitting at the dining room table with my laptop, and I went back to work. And my work was like being on LinkedIn and connecting with people and trying to, you know, we're pushing stuff for ACEs right now and like doing all those things. And Michelle goes, dinner's ready. And I didn't move, and I keep working. And then she like sets the table, and then the kids showed up with their iPads. And I was like, guys, no iPads at dinner. They're like, but you're on your laptop. I'm like, but I'm working. And so they like kept doing, and it wasn't until there was food in front of my face that I closed my laptop. Right? So what is that? Let's say 6 to 7. Put the kids, eat dinner. As soon as I was done eating, open the laptop back up, went back at it for another half hour. Right? And it's not me like avoiding my kids. It's me going, I had a really busy day at work taking care of, like I had 2 crazy complex tickets yesterday that I had to work on. And I spent the majority of my day spinning my wheels on those 2 things. Guess what? I still got to put the time in for the marketing. And I have enough money, truthfully, to hire a marketing firm. I just don't want to. I don't want to spend that money. Right? So like, I got to put the time in, and that's where the time was, 6 to 7:30 or whatever, 7, and then from 7:30 to 8. By the end of it, I was spent, not going to lie, but like, that's what had to happen. And you know what happened? I sold an ACES ticket.
And I think that, you know, you're pointing something out that's critically important, because there is a division in our industry, right? Between lifestyle and growth MSPs. And I think we'll talk about that on the next episode of All Things MSP.
Oh, I see what you did there. Well, stay tuned for part 2. Same bat time, same bat channel. If you want to know what's happening, check us out at facebook.com/group/allthingsmsp. Check us in high def glory, 1080p, baby. youtube.com/@allthingsmsp. We're on all of your favorite podcasting tools. Leave a review. I want to see those reviews. My goal for 2025 is to get more reviews of this show. Leave a review or I will find you. Any last words before we say goodbye to the very scared folks at home?
Well, you know, it's a scary show. I just think that if you take one thing away from this episode, it is that, number one, we love our marketing friends. Okay. So we're not really saying that marketers are shit. Okay. But they're only shit until you get your shit together. Yeah. I guess that's what I want to say, because you need to understand your business well enough to do the marketing yourself before you can direct somebody else to help you with it.
Awesome. I was going to say something very similar, so I'm not going to say it. That's Eric. I'm Justin. Bye.
I guess I should stop recording now.
I got shit on my shirt.
Thank you for listening or watching the All Things MSP podcast. If you liked this episode, go ahead and give us a thumbs up, hit that like button, and consider subscribing to catch all our weekly episodes. And from your host extraordinaire, Justin Esgar, and myself, Eric Anthony, your humble producer and All Things MSP founder, thank you very much for spending your time with us. If you are not aware, All Things MSP started as a Facebook group and now supports over 6,000 members. We also have a LinkedIn page for those of you who don't do Facebook, and make sure to check out our YouTube channel for even more content. A special thank you to our elite sponsor, CoreView, helping you manage your Microsoft 365 tenants instead of them managing you. And thank you to our premier sponsors, EasyDmark, Helped, GoZinta, MoveBot, and Nodeware. And thank you to the rest of our sponsors. Without sponsors, we could not do what we do for the MSP community. Please consider checking them out. The All Things MSP podcast is a BizPow LLC production. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not reflect the thoughts and opinions of any employer, vendor, sponsor, or random taxi driver in the Metro DC area. Be sure to join us next week for another exciting episode.